ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon. You're listening to us on Broadway World or the Broadway Podcast Network or over here on social media. You don't think of Broadway World and motocross racing. You don't think of me. James, I'm scared to ride a bicycle. So I need to know I need the whole scoop and story. But what you've done and what I've learned about this documentary and your organization is the price you all pay to take on the sport. So welcome to the show. It's so nice to
Yeah,
have you.
thanks for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
So you're a part of this documentary that's out that we're going to talk about. But besides that, you are a motocross uh, professional, expert, former professional.
I think
How
probably
do you
probably
describe
all
it?
those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when did you first decide like this is something that you wanted to do? Do you remember your first bike? Do you remember the moment when you thought like this is something I need to put my hands and feet and body to the metal here?
Yeah, absolutely. My father had Honda motorcycle dealerships. So, if you I was the little kid with, I was a little 3-year-old running around the dealerships with a duster, like dusting off the bikes. And so I was around bikes my entire life. And, my dad took me to a race when I was 2 or 2.5 years old. Um, and I still to this day, I'm 51 years old and I can still remember the smell of the air, of the oil and gasoline burning. And to me, it was like an instant, like, I want to be whatever this is. I like whatever this is. And I told my dad I wanted a bike, and he said, "Well, you can't even ride a bicycle yet. Like, you need to be riding a bicycle before you can have a motorcycle." And by the time he came home from work the following day, like, I was riding a bicycle around the front yard. And the very next day, I got a bike. And from that point forward, I was riding a motorcycle, and I got very good at it very quickly. And by the time I was 8 years old, I was being paid to race. And by the time I was 12, I was traveling internationally, doing events all over the world. And so it was, in fact, it was the very air that I breathed, was riding motorcycles. And it's all I did until the day that I got injured and my career ended.
Well, while we're talking, right, which we're going to get to in a moment, while we're talking to you, the movie is called Pay Dirt, the story of Supercross. It's out theaters worldwide. While I've got everyone here, January 24th. It's narrated by none other than Oscar nominee Josh Brolin, who is the baddest Avenger of them all, James,
For
and
sure.
and decides to talk through this story. But what I didn't understand, I know this from like ESPN and when I was growing up in the 80s, the 90s, and the big boom of when this all of the extreme sports and supercross and all
Yeah.
this stuff became such a big thing. But I never thought about it. We have documentaries now about football, about wrestling, about baseball players, about what happens to someone's body, the journey that it takes to go through this. You've created a whole organization. We don't talk about people in extreme sports, especially in motocross, and what happens when you have that injury. What were you have this big career. Tell us about your injury, what happened, and then how did things change drastically when it ended?
Well, it's funny. You think about Supercross, and it's big and it's huge, and the bikes are flying through the air and all these things. And so you would think, oh, an injury of the magnitude I had would be this massive catastrophic crash that was very flamboyant, I guess you would say. Um, and completely opposite of that, I basically fell down going 2 miles an hour, hit my head just wrong, and broke my neck and became paralyzed from the neck down. So obviously the career ends instantaneously at that point. Um, but I was one of the very, very fortunate ones, and God had another plan for me. And a few months into my rehab, one of my index fingers started to work, which I talk about in the film. And slowly but surely, all of my faculties came back. And in doing that and going through that process, you know, I was at the very top of the sport, so I was very well known internationally, and people came out from all sorts under every rock you could imagine, saying, "Hey, you should look at this, you should do that, you should do this," like with tons of information and guidance. And I thought to myself, okay, here I am at the top of the sport. I've done very, very well, financially and otherwise. and all these people are coming out to help me. What happens to the next person that maybe they're very early in their journey in sport, and this happens, and they're not financially equipped, or they're not as well known and they need help. Like, we need to create a foundation that will help that next one out. And so we created a Road to Recovery Foundation, and we help out traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries. Really, we're not working with broken bones and things of that nature. We're talking massive injuries. And unfortunately, we have quite a bit of them. I mean, the sport's dangerous. All sports are dangerous. I mean, if you have to wear a helmet for a sport, it's dangerous. And so that's what we do. And my injury was the catalyst to do this and to help these people out, because there's no book on how to get through a brain injury or spinal cord injury. And so we try to be that bridge that helps guide the athlete themselves as well as the family, because it affects everybody up and down, in your network of life. It affects everybody. And so we try to be financial support as well as, kind of emotional, spiritual, and help them, figure out different therapies. And I mean, if it comes down to them needing a van that's accessible, we'll go build them a van, or we'll retrofit their home, or whatever it may be, or help them learn some sort of a skill set that they could then, move to that next chapter of their life and get themselves a job, because, more than likely, this is what they've been doing their whole life to get to this level. So we try to be that with the foundation. And without my injury and us, having the idea to do it, it might not be around. So everything comes with a price, and my price was to create this foundation and try to help other people out.
Well, I want people to know, while we're talking, the link below us will lead you to Road to Recovery. It's the road and then the number 2, recovery.com. And you could donate money and you could find out more about the information. You have your website is so forthcoming for a charitable organization. The tax returns and where the money goes and everything is laid out there, which is why you must have had such great success since 2000, because the money that you raise legitimately goes to the people who need it.
Yeah.
and goes to make sure that they're able to sustain a life. How do you talk about the sport that you love so much, that injured you so much? It's got to be a very bittersweet. Do you still ride? Do you still watch? Do you still?
I can't ride,
Right.
mainly because my throttle hand
Okay.
doesn't work as well. But I love the sport. I still go to probably 20 races a year out of the 30 that there are.
Wow.
I still mentor and guide a number of young athletes through their careers. I love the sport. It gave me everything that I have. It's opened doors for me that have helped me in business, and in life. It introduced me to my then girlfriend, now wife, and I have a beautiful family and children. And my kids are fans of the sport, even though my son plays golf. That's what he does. But he loves the sport. He's got guys that he cheers on every single Saturday night. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of our lives. Yeah, I mean, like I said, when you wear a helmet for your occupation, you know what the risks are.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to take on those risks, and that's not what you should be doing. I was willing to do it. I knew what the outcome could potentially be. Unfortunately, it got me, and that's the way it works, and that's fine. I tell everybody, every interview I do, they ask me about I get very similar questions. I said, listen, everyone in life, we get one lap around the merry-go-round, and you're not going to get a free lap. No one does. And whether if something happens to you directly or to a loved one or something, you're going to be affected in a very dark, bad way.
Yeah.
And how you react to that, it really defines who you end up being in life, and what you're able to do and give back and pay it forward. And there's always someone out there that's better looking, smarter, richer, and everything else. And there's someone out there that's also doing much worse than you are. So Kind of understanding that, recognizing that, and just trying to be the best that you can be in all those situations is what I always try to do.
You're like the most calming presence for an extreme sport kind of guy. You just feel like a bundle of therapy and good vibes and healthy responses and all of that stuff. You know what I was thinking about? We have so much of our lives are tied up to our identity, and a lot of our identity is what we do. And
Correct.
at some point you spend your whole life doing something, and then at some point it changes. Was it hard for you to create a new identity or to accept the new chapter that was going to be your life?
Well, I think if you choose when that happens, right? Um, Maybe it's a little bit different, but for me, it was a door opened and closed instantaneously. And so when your hand is forced into my situation, like here you go, in a blink of an eye, your career's over. Now you need to kind of figure some shit out very quickly. And so, I've told people all the time, like, if you have anything between the ears, you can figure it out, right? Like nothing's forever. It just isn't. And that's in good and in bad, and so, and if you got something in between the ears, you can figure out how to have fun again, how to make money, how to reinvent yourself. Um, and I think being an athlete, you learn how to have that no quit in you. And so, I used a lot of those same principles that got me to where I was in sport to kind of further my life and be successful in business. And I think I've been successful as a husband and a dad. Um, and I think also with our foundation, to your point earlier, we are super transparent. If you donate money to us, we want you to know where that money's going and where it came from. We don't hide anything. We again, we just want to be good citizens here.
That's what I'm saying, everybody. So look it up. But I was reading about you and your 10 years plus of being active, and like I said, I can tell you all the Broadway shows that are out right now, but I don't necessarily know what the East Region Supercross series is, but I know it's a big deal. And I know that you spent your years doing this, and now you mentor the next generation of people. You've worked with the organization and then within your own business, mentoring and guiding and managing and helping the next generation of motocross. When people come to you, do you talk to them about the pros and cons? Is it something you don't talk about? Do you talk about what could happen? Is thinking about people's safety and what could happen something that you address, or is it like, well, we're not even going to mention it. It's bad luck. It's bad karma. What do you do? How do you express
No,
it?
I definitely mention it because it's reality, right? Like, let's not live with our head in the clouds. Understanding what the black and white of everything is, and how do you work through that, and how do you mentally work through those things, right? But the reality is for these guys, especially the ones that I work with, the window is small. Like the career doesn't last very long. I mean, it really doesn't last that long in any sport, to be quite honest. You have a long time building up to becoming a professional. And then if you have 10 seasons or 12 or sometimes 15 seasons, like you'll see, I mean, that's a long career. But that's a very, very short time in life,
Right.
and the older you get, the more that you realize that. So I try to I'm that old guy, right? That, I try to instill that in the guys, take advantage of what you have right now because it doesn't last forever and it very well could end tomorrow. So enjoy what you're doing, put all your effort and energy into it, but also know that at one point, like, it's going to end, and you got to be ready for what that next chapter looks like.
Well, the next chapters come along like documentaries that you get to tell your story and then other people's stories that are legend. I was looking at, I get stuck on this because I don't have one exhilarating bone in my body. I don't want to skydive. I once went on a jet ski and my friends made fun of me because they said stay 50 feet away from everybody. So I just made little figure eights by myself, James. Like I am not looking to hurt myself in any way. I get upset if I get a splinter. So when I hear people that have this adrenaline rush and that love these, I'm floored and I love hearing about it. Um, And so then a documentary comes along where you get to tell your story and tell your story about the organ. How did it come along to you? And what was your thoughts when Paul, the director, Paul Taublieb, or people come to you and say, hey, do you want to be a part of a documentary on the sport? Was there any trepidation? Were you excited to talk about it? How did this become a part of your story?
Yeah, it was great. I've known Paul for 30 years, and I'd been hearing that he'd been working on this for some time, and when it got greenlit, he gave me a call and said, "Hey, I want you to come in. We want to sit down with you. We want to talk to you about your career. Obviously the accident, what happened, and what happened afterwards." Um, and yeah, absolutely no hesitation on my part. They did want my wife to come in and interview her, and for her, it still, I think it still touches home a little bit too much, so she passed on the opportunity. But for me, I live it every day. I talk to people. When people get injured in and around our sport, I'm one of the first people that gets a phone call, right? And so to me, it's something I'm very open about and candid about talking to people. So yeah, I mean, when it came about, I was happy to be a part of it, excited to be a part of it. I was happy for our sport to get some mainstream exposure. The fact that this is going to be a worldwide film that's going to be seen by people in many countries and languages. So for me, it was great, to talk about the sport that I've loved since I was 3, 4, 5 years old. To see us getting, on a bigger national stage all the time or a global stage. Happy to be a part of it, happy to tell my story. And if it, like everything else, if you can help one person like get through a day a little bit easier, then you've done a good
You did
job.
your job. So when you read about see the preview and when I read about it and look about what it's about, Pay Dirt, the story of Supercross coming out this January, everybody, the 24th. So if you're in North America, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, like it's going to be around the world. So you need to check this out. Even if you are not, if you're a casual fan or you're just looking for, because even if you have known nothing about Supercross, this is a scandal. There's some scandalous stories in the sport.
There definitely is. But I think it's one of those things, uh, when they see the athlete like myself, where you see a race going on, like if you tune in on NBC or Peacock and you watch the show on Saturday, you see the tip of the sphere, right? You see the top of the iceberg. And the reality is that it's much bigger underneath, and to get to that point that you're seeing on TV, there's so much that has gone on, good and bad. And so I think the movies, is really great about telling a multiple weaves of the story of how it got to this point and who was a part of it and how we've ended up here in 2025, with the sport in the position that it is. So I think it's great. Paul and the boys did a fantastic job with telling that story. I think the movie could have gone on for hours and hours and hours because there's so many different stories and backstories that could have been told. I think they tried to focus on a number of them that would kind of tug at the heartstrings of people, and also the curiosity of, whoa, how did that become this? And from the founders and what went on with them of the series, and just absolute debauchery that came from that. But it took us a long time to get to this mainstream level, and a lot had to be done. And again, both good and bad. And I think that's, there's no clean street for any of these things. And yes, I think it does a good job at showing all that. And again, kind of weaving in some different personalities that
Well,
the sports scene.
if you're a sports fan, if you're a documentary fan, if you're a true crime fan, because I mean, I'm not trying to give the whole story away, but I think the person who kind of created the mainstream of the sport is in prison.
Correct.
So if you want to know about murder, your business partner, allegedly, I don't know, am I supposed to say allegedly? Is it done? Maybe, I don't know. You're gonna have to watch the documentary and find out. I think that's a good cliffhanger.
It is,
I,
and it's something that you wouldn't normally think, but I bet you if you look through the NFL or baseball or any, I'm sure there's many of those stories that are underneath the rug. But Pay Dirt has told the stories
Yes.
and
So
open it up.
are there people that, if we're motocross fans and we're people that watch this when it's on television and follow along with the races, who are some of the people that are also a part of the documentary that we may know?
Yeah, I think, you look at some of the older guys, the guys that I certainly looked up to, Bob Hanna plays a big part in this. He was one of those guys that you just looked to as like, oh my God, if you had that type of true grit, and just nonstop fighting you, that would be great. And then you work into the 80s where you have the Ricky Johnsons of the world. And and Ricky for me was one of the guys that I really, really looked up to. He was one of my heroes. It's odd to now, look on, 30 years later, and I can lob a call over to him and text him, and we have conversations, and we're friends, and our wives are friends. So it's funny when you end up becoming close to the people that you idolized. It's certainly like that's a weird transition that you end up having. And it's great, and then the movie works into some of the modern day guys that are doing really well right now. And you have the Hayden Degans of the world that are in there, and some people will know him from those X Game days and watching his dad. So it's an interesting sport. It's very dynamic. Um, Again, there's a lot of stories that this thing kind of unfolds, and you get to see, and you kind of get a little slice of the pie of what is taken to get to the point that we're at right now.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for people to check it out. I know that you have a big old giant premiere that's coming up, and it's probably going to be a moment for everybody that's a part of this to get together to see people that they have not seen, and then you don't get to have to wear a helmet to go to a movie premiere.
This is true.
You reckon I didn't even know what you looked like without a helmet. I didn't even know. Um, what did you see? Do you know why Josh Brolin was drawn to narrate this? Is he a Supercross fan? Does he just love the
From
saga?
From my understanding, he is a big Supercross fan. And when the project was brought to him, I don't think they even got all the words out before he like jumped on board, which was really cool, right? Because he's a larger than life character. Obviously, that voice, you hear that voice, and it really starts to resonate with you, right? Because you've heard that voice, and obviously, and then you've seen him in the movies that he's been in, and so on and so forth. So having him be a part of it, I think, is great, because for the person out there that's maybe never heard of Supercross, but they know him, or they know some of the voices that he's been, I think that'll resonate with them and legitimize what it is that what this movie's all about.
Well, I can't think of a better voice to narrate this whole entire thing because his voice is perfect for it. Like you said, grit. It's got the perfect moment. And Paul is going to be on our show. The director is going to be on our show as well. So we'll get his take from a creative side as opposed to Mr. Button over here who gives us the actual side of it. I want to thank you. You were very inspiring to take when life hands you lemons, you really did make lemonade and you helped the next generation. Many people would just go on and do something different. You face it, and now what you've learned, you then help the next generations to be able to do better and to feel better and to be safer. And that's something that is really amazing. So congratulations to what you've done with your organization and the body of work that you've made. You're inspiration.
I appreciate it, Robert. Thanks. And yeah, we just keep on keeping on.
Keep on. People need to check out the movie. Firstly, you're going to have to definitely check out the movie January 24th. It is out, like I said, in all of North America, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And also, if you want to help and find out more about the organization, then you got to join and be a part of the Road to Recovery as well. And you can just go right away to the website, which is road to the number two recovery.com, and all the information is on there. I mean, I think James's social security numbers on there. I mean, they are about it. You are
We
about
are we are transparent, man.
So
We appreciate all the help that we can get. And again, we want everybody to know that their money is safe, and we're good custodians of it, and that we're using the money for the right reasons.
You made me want to go ride a bicycle, and I haven't done
All
that in
right,
like 30 years.
there we go. We're
Let's.
making progress.
I'm living on the wild side now. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy and congratulations.
Thanks, Robert. Take care.